The big positive for Newcastle has to be the fact that Eddie Howe's got his wish, which is to try to get business done early. That's something that held Newcastle United back numerous times down the years, but thankfully now everyone's on the same page. And Eddie Howe hopefully will have at least a couple of players in for the start of pre-season. Even last season that was a little bit difficult, if you remember. Harvey Barnes arriving in America when Newcastle were midway through the pre-season tour over there. And realistically, Eddie Howe knows Newcastle, they can't mess about this summer. They finished 7th last season. It wasn't enough to get a European place. So there is obviously that expectation to do better at Newcastle this season coming up, because top 6 was mooted by Darren Eales last January and Newcastle didn't achieve that. So there's going to be certainly a need for Newcastle to hit the ground running in that first couple of months of the season, and Eddie Howe knows that the only way of doing that is to get business done early. So really important, and it looks like Eddie Howe has got that wish. So exciting times again on Tyneside, and really now counting down to a big pre-season, and Eddie Howe will be delighted to have those new players on board when they head over to Germany and Japan later this summer. And transfer-wise, I just do get the feeling that Newcastle are trying to freshen things up a little bit. They know last season was a real slog in terms of injury, and I think they are almost trying to build a bit of a younger team, a bit of a younger squad, something with almost an eye on the next 3 or 4 years. So, I think this summer, we perhaps could see, the departure of some popular figures. Certainly players who, since the takeover, have helped Newcastle establish themselves in the sort of upper echelons of the Premier League. And it remains to be seen exactly who will leave, but certainly Newcastle seem open to sales this summer. Not saying there's going to be a huge overhaul. Eddie Howe's already said that, but I think realistically, if you go back to Darren Eales' comments back in January, he said that every player potentially has a price because of PSR, because of FFP. So it does remain to be seen exactly what happens in terms of outgoings. We've already seen a bit of a hint of it. If you look at the players that were released, Matt Ritchie, Paul Dummett were certainly players that initially Eddie Howe's first draft of the plans he had for this coming season, were to retain those 2 players, have them as squad players. Not getting into Europe changed that instantly. It got hauled away from Eddie Howe. He has to rethink his plans a little bit. As I say, they're all looking towards a younger squad, so it means that players like Alex Murphy may step up, may have a part to play, a bigger part. And next season, if we're being honest, I don't think there's any immediate pressure on anybody, but I do think that Newcastle will be looking to, the powers that be will be looking, at Newcastle's first team situation and saying that, 7th place, that's not where we want to be. We've already heard it from Newcastle's chairman, who says he wants Newcastle United to be number 1. He wants that ambition to be there. They won't get to number 1 unless they really start to reshape things and look at next season potentially as a stepping stone. Let's try and get back in that top 4, top 5 first, and then maybe build after that. But certainly now, with no European football, those domestic cup competitions suddenly become very important. The Carabao Cup final a couple of years ago was massive for Newcastle. They'll need, a cup run to keep people interested. And it is about really trying to get back into, as I say, that top 4, top 5. So potentially a refreshed look, potentially some younger players coming through. And Eddie Howe knows that change must happen. How quickly we'll see that change, we'll see that unfold in the next few weeks.